Ew, ew. Yeah, this is one of the wildest things that I've seen in a while. And it just keeps on getting wilder, right? CNN brings on the foreign minister of Canada, Mélanie Joly, and listen to the conversation that they had about tariffs. Seeing CNN do this is almost like I feel like they're like traitors to America in a lot of ways. Just listen to how this interview is conducted. She is more favorable to Canada and the foreign minister than she is to actual American politicians. She doesn't ask any hard questions. She doesn't press the foreign minister. She doesn't bring up obvious things when we're talking about tariffs, as far as it being reciprocal, with the emphasis on reciprocal and how it's fair for us to pay a certain amount that they're not paying to sell their products in America. We're paying significantly more. That is the whole meaning behind reciprocal tariffs. But because CNN is so attached to the Democratic Party and they prioritize destroying Trump above doing what's best for the country, their priority, their mission is destroy Trump, destroy the Republicans, destroy the conservative movement. They are not putting America first. I'm just talking about this conversation. You can have a difference of opinion on a lot of things, but just looking how this interview is conducted, it should tell us a lot. I was disgusted by this. Disgusted. Let's get into it.
Well, Canada appears set to hold a key election in the coming weeks, and it could have big implications in President Trump's ongoing trade war. Newly minted Prime Minister Mark Carney is expected to call for a snap election this weekend, and Canadians could head to the polls as soon as next month, just weeks after President Trump's next round of tariffs are set to go into effect. Joining us now is Canadian Foreign Minister Mélanie Joly. Foreign Minister, thank you for coming on. You have called these tariffs an existential threat. What is Canada prepared to do if these new tariffs go into effect on April 2nd?
Well, listen, we've already put $60 billion worth of counter tariffs on American goods. These tariffs, Pam, are a tax on hardworking Americans. These tariffs are going to cost more to Americans at the pump and also when they go do their groceries. So we're
Shame on this journalist for not doing what I'm getting ready to do. She's allowing her to say that these tariffs are a tax on Americans. That's not what it is. It's a tax on the companies. The companies can choose whether or not they're going to pass along that expense onto the consumer. But this journalist is not pushing back. The tariff is not on, it's not a tax on the consumers. It's a tax on the company. On the company. And she's totally disregarding the fact she's saying that she's issuing counter tariffs as if Trump's reciprocal tariffs were a counter tariff. It's you're charging us X for us to sell our products in Canada. Meanwhile, we're paying a lot more than X for you to be, I'm sorry, we're charging you guys a certain amount as Americans. We're charging Canada a certain small percentage, right? Based on when you compare it to what Canada's charging us to sell our products in Canada, it's a lot more. That's why Trump wants to incorporate reciprocal tariffs. Whatever you guys charge us, we're going to charge you. Simple. She's talking about a counter tariff as if this just came out of nowhere, as if we're paying something even right now and Trump just decided to go up compared to what Canada's paying when it comes to importing our products. Let's keep going.
We're launching an ad campaign today in 12 different states. Canadians are sending a message that there's no winners in a trade war. There will be job losses on both sides of the border, and particularly in the U.S. And Canada is the biggest customer of the U.S. We buy more American goods from the U.S. than China, Japan.
Job losses, particularly in the U.S. Ma'am, journalist, are you going to push back? Job losses in the U.S. False. Push back on it. If we're charging y'all tariffs, right? If we're charging you guys tariffs, then what it's going to do, and let's just say that there are initial job losses. If you look at the big picture, and we're so used to looking at today, how things are going today, that's why long term, that's why we're in the debt issue that we have now. That's why we are $36 trillion of debt because we only pay attention to the now. We don't look long term. If those tariffs are implemented, what it's going to do is it's going to, let's say it raises the prices, as Mélanie Joly said, it raises the prices of the Canadian goods that are being sold to Americans. What is that going to do? That's going to make the American companies, their products, more competitive. That would make Americans be more likely to purchase American products. That means American companies are going to grow. And as they grow, they're going to hire more people. And who are those people that they're going to hire? More Americans. And she actually brings this point up later on when it's in defense of Canadians. This is, yeah, let's keep going.
France and the UK. So imagine what the Trump administration right now is doing to its biggest customer that is supporting so many American jobs. So that's why we want to make sure that Americans know.
So tell us more about this ad campaign that you're launching and what states in particular.
She did not push back on anything that this lady just said. Anything. You didn't even ask a question.
Mm-hmm.
You're providing a platform for the Canadian foreign minister to pitch to the American public as to why Donald Trump is bad and why the tariffs that he's putting on Canada are going to be bad for Americans. She's selling something. And you're allowing it without asking any questions. This is wild. This is wild.
So we will be having huge billboards along the key highways in Florida and Nevada and Georgia, in New Hampshire, Michigan, Ohio, 12 different states. And we know very much that these states are red states. But we're doing that because we think that we need to send a message to the American people for them to understand what's at stake, because this is really going to hurt, their livelihoods and have an impact on their wallets. And my message to hardworking Americans is, please talk to your senators, talk to your House representatives, to your mayors, to your governors. Send the message that you don't want these tariffs, because nobody will win in this approach coming out from the White House. So is this
false? False. If nobody wins with these tariffs, let me ask you a question, Ms. Joly. You guys charge us more than the tariffs you pay to sell your products in America. And that's clearly been very favorable to you, which is why you're on CNN trying to make sure that nothing changes. So if it's favorable to you to charge more from Americans when you import our products than the amount that you're paying to sell your products when they're imported by Americans into America from Canada, I seem to be missing something here. Am I confused, or is she saying what's good for Canada is not necessarily good for America? Of course you want to continue to pay less than what you're paying. I'm sorry. Of course you want to continue to pay less in your tariffs compared to what you want to charge us in our tariffs for us to sell in your country. Of course that makes sense for you. And this CNN journalist should understand that. Reciprocal tariffs. How could anything at least have the conversation around reciprocal tariffs from a fair and objective standpoint to say, like, okay, man, well, if Canada's charging more than what America's charging in tariffs, wouldn't it be fair to just charge the same in tariffs? And then maybe you'll get to a point where, okay, we have a good relationship. We're not going to charge in tariffs because we have such a good relationship. But why are we paying more than they're paying? How does that make any sense? And she's just trying to sell this Canada first. And shout out to her. She's coming on CNN pushing a Canada first agenda on an American platform. And this CNN journalist is allowing her to sell this Canadian first agenda on her America platform. And maybe this is why the Democrats continue to lose, why CNN's ratings are at the bottom, why MSNBC, their ratings are at the bottom, because they are pushing the prioritization of other countries rather than the prioritization of American citizens. We're seeing it right in front of us. This is crazy.
It's important that all together we work to prevent them.
So the EU is now delaying its retaliatory tariffs it had announced to allow for, quote, additional time for discussions with the U.S. Is Canada willing to do the same with the retaliatory tariffs that your country has announced for April 2nd? That is a day, as we know, that the president is calling Liberation Day.
So what we said is that we would be ready to put $150 billion worth of tariffs against the tariffs imposed by the White House because of a pause on one of the executive order coming out of the White House. We decided to pause the rest of the tariffs, the $90 billion worth of tariffs that are still under consultation here, just to show goodwill. I've had some conversations with Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State. I've been in contact also with key Republican senators, including Lindsey Graham. My colleagues within cabinet have been in contact also with Howard Lutnick and Mr. Bessent. And so our job is to make sure that while we put pressure, at the same time, we're really willing to discuss. But at the end of the day, we very know, Pam, that people watching us right now in the States are the only ones that can really influence what's going on in the White House, because ultimately they're the first victims of these taxes that are imposed by their federal government against them.
Do you think that President Trump is using these tariffs as a sort of economic force to annex Canada? He had said previously that he would be willing to use economic force against Canada to achieve his objective.
Before we get to that, this is disgusting work by this reporter. This is nasty work right here. Let's just get a refresher on the tariffs. Of course, it makes sense for us to circulate our money into our economy. What do I mean by that? I mean, you have a company that's in America paying Americans. The Americans take that money that they make and they go buy products. Now, when I say circulating into the American economy, I'm talking about the money that they make, those workers, right? The money that they get paid from their jobs and they go and spend on American companies. That's the goal, because you stimulate your own economy, right? Just look at the different demographics in America. Look at the different demographics. Certain demographics of people, Black people, our dollar doesn't circulate in our community. It hurts us a lot. As soon as we get paid, we spend it in different communities. Now let's go back to America. This is why it's important for Americans to make sure that we have factories that are providing jobs in America for Americans. And then once Americans get paid, that we're not just sending our money to countries or companies that are bringing the money back to their country. It's important for us to support our own economy. And I think other countries understand that, just like this Canadian foreign minister who's prioritizing Canada first. If you're putting America first, then obviously you want, like I said, factories and companies to be in America, hiring American workers. And then once they get paid, those people are purchasing American-made products. So if the tariffs are going to allow the American companies to compete price-wise with a lot of these companies, whether it's Canada, whether it's in China, whether it's in Mexico, and a lot of these places where they can produce products for cheaper because the labor's cheaper, if it's going to allow or force, like she said, consumers to pay more for those products that are not purchased in America, then the American companies now get a competitive advantage, or they get allowed to compete with the pricing, because previously the reason why we purchase products from China, why? Because it's cheaper. It's cheaper. We're not looking at it like, hey, we want to support the American economy. We're looking at it like, yo, what's the cheapest one on Amazon? So now if those products that we're just purchasing from China are cheap, which were cheaper, are no longer cheaper, now the American made companies, they can compete. So that's a positive when it comes to America. Now, what they're trying to sell us on is the fear in the short term, which is what we're going through right now. The fear in the short term. But if we continue to be short-sighted with this, we will continue to be in this position that we are in right now, where we're borrowing money from China, where we're $36 trillion in debt, to where we are not circulating money in our own economy. We're causing inflation because we got to continue printing money. We're not making money and circulating that within our own economy and making our American economy strong. Let's continue.
Their federal government against them.
Do you think that President Trump is using these tariffs as a sort of economic force to annex Canada? He had said previously that he would be willing to use economic force against Canada to achieve his objective.
Yes, he has mentioned that. And so when President Trump speaks, we take him to his word. And so in that sense, Canadians are fighting back at home, right here in Canada, where I am. People are buying local. People are there to support their own Canadians.
Wait, you're fighting back by supporting your local businesses and companies? Oh, so you're fighting back to support Canadian businesses. But Trump isn't supposed to fight back or put tariffs because they support American companies, American businesses, and allow American businesses to compete and incentivize foreign companies to build factories in America and hire American workers if you're going to sell your foreign product to us. At the very least you can do is hire American workers. Listen to what she's saying. Like, this is crazy.
Because people are mad. They're infuriated. Imagine the case.
Yeah, I just realized something. You know how the Democrats treat black people? Where it's like, oh yeah, we're going to do all this stuff for you and then never have any intentions of doing it. Y'all know what I'm talking about, right? No. Oh, you're a Democrat? My bad. I mean, I hurt your feelings. That's how America's being treated. Like, the nerve, the audacity. You're like, you think that's something that your country's going to do. And you're pushing your country, saying like, hey, you know, now that Canadians are upset, now Canadians are supporting more Canadian businesses. That's what we're going to do. Well, that's the whole point of what Donald Trump is trying to do with the tariffs, to make American companies competitive and to feed American companies and to have reciprocal tariffs. He didn't say that we're going to charge you more than what you're charging us. That's what he could do. He didn't say we're going to charge everybody more. He said, hey, this isn't fair. We're paying more to sell our products in your country than you're paying to sell your products in our country. And that is why America has become buyers and not sellers.
Case of another country saying that they don't recognize the borders of the U.S., that they're threatening the sovereignty of American territory. How would Americans react? They would say, no way, it's unacceptable. Well, that's exactly how Canadians are reacting right now.
And I want to highlight something the president said this week. Take a look.
And before she highlights what the president said this week, perhaps Trump should chill out with the whole 51st state and calling Prime Minister Trudeau Governor Trudeau. See, you got to be able to be objective. Perhaps it's not in the best interest to piss off Canadians, just like she's trying to appeal to America and not try to piss off American citizens. Perhaps that's something that Donald Trump should do as well. I'm just throwing it out there, rather than just creating beef where there doesn't need to be. Because the more sensible Canadian citizens are, and not just getting pissed off, the more sensible they are, then perhaps they'll hear and understand the message that Donald Trump is delivering with, which is clear. We're no longer going to pay more in our tariffs to sell our products in your country than you pay to sell your products in ours. Doesn't make sense. And let's just say that Canada can't survive with the tariffs being reciprocal. Then the Canadian foreign minister in Canada, they should acknowledge, hey, we understand that this has been unfair for a bit. Can we gradually maybe get to a reciprocal tariff? But she's not even acknowledging the fact that we're paying more than they're paying. Like how unfair that is. She's not even acknowledging that. Like, acknowledge that, then we can have a conversation. But Trump's going to do what Trump's going to do. But, maybe Trump should, not antagonize the Canadians by saying the 51st country and calling them Governor Trudeau. I get it. We support Canada in a lot of ways. And that was clear when Doug Ford, their American premier, or I'm sorry, the Canadian premier, how he doubled back, how he's talking real tough to Trump and then changed his tune. But neither here nor there. Like, the goal is to not hurt somebody or hurt the other country, destroy the confidence, make fun of them, tease them. The goal is to just put America first, prioritize our interests, but of course, be fair to the people that we do trade with. And by fair, I think a good starting point is reciprocal tariffs. And then at least start the conversation with some sort of acknowledgement there. And then, okay, if it doesn't make sense right now, if it's really going to hurt Canada, who's been a friend of us, then let's talk about it. But at least let's have some type of acknowledgement that it's not fair to not have reciprocal tariffs. Or that let's just acknowledge that, hey, we're charging America way more than America's charging Canada.
Listen.
Canada was meant to be the 51st state. One of the nastiest countries to deal with is Canada. The people that, now this was Trudeau, the people that good old Justin, I call him Governor Trudeau, his people were nasty.
What is your message to the president?
Well, my message first and foremost is to American people. We know that we're best friends. Americans and Canadians are best friends, best neighbors.
Bruh, knock it off. Knock it off. I don't want to hear that best friend stuff when you're charging me more than I'm charging you. All that best friend talk sounds great when you're taking advantage of the relationship.
Best allies. We never started this trade war. We never called for it. And by the way, this was never discussed in the election.
Imagine somebody calling a war, a trade war, any situation. Let's say you have a friend and they're upset when you start, you allow them to get away with certain stuff that they don't allow you to get away with. You ever have a friendship like that? And then when you finally put your foot down and you start giving them exactly what they're giving you, now they're upset. Why? Because you've allowed them to get away with it for so long, to the point where they actually think that that's normal and how it should be. This is what we're seeing happening right now. The problem for Canada and a lot of these other countries is Donald Trump is not going to just keep allowing that type of stuff to happen. Now you have somebody who's saying like, yo, this doesn't make any sense. Nah, this ain't right. Just because you were taking advantage of your partner in your last relationship doesn't mean that you're going to take advantage of me now in this relationship.
That ultimately happened back in November in your country. So we will continue to push back against that narrative. And meanwhile, well, the rhetoric coming out of the White House is so, how can I say, absurd regarding the annexation and completely unacceptable. Well, we're looking at other partners. Canada has always been very close also to Europe. And we've been always very close to Great Britain. So we'll do that. But meanwhile, who are the...
Yeah, test that. See what the relationships are like that. See if the European countries, to which we also have unfair trade agreements with, they're charging us more than we're charging them. See if they'll allow you. See if China will allow you. Matter of fact, reach out to China. See if China will allow you to charge them more than they're charging you. I'm a fan of testing. If you want to see what your value is, test yourself out on that free agent market. Go see what else is out there and see what happens.
First impacted by all this rhetoric and all these this nastiness, it's ultimately American people themselves. And so that's why it was important, Pam, for me to have the chance to talk to your viewers through our interview to make sure that the message was there and that Americans can send a clear message also to their lawmakers.
This CNN journalist, like, this is why people, like, have some pride in your country, man. Like, it's easy to complain about America. Oh, it's not this and not that. Have some pride in your country. Have some pride in the country that you live in, where you'll even stand up again. Like, listen to what she's saying. We're looking at other partners. That's That's almost like, all right, I'm gonna make it crazy. I don't even know if this is gonna land. That's like you have a teammate. I was gonna say use a relationship example, but you have a teammate or a family member, and your family member is talking to your ex-girlfriend, my ex-girlfriend, or my girlfriend. We on bad terms, or we going through it. And my girl is telling my family, like, yeah, I got other, dudes that I could be dating. I got other dudes. And you just sitting there like, yeah, maybe you should. I don't even know if that's the best example, but this is just wild. Like, man, have some pride in what you like. You're an American. And that's a bad analogy because the relationship doesn't directly impact your family. But this absolute situation directly impacts her as an American. Have some pride. Like, damn.
Just really quick, have these negotiations with Bessent and Lutnick and the White House, have they gotten anywhere? Is there anything that you can tell us about what may have changed as a result of these negotiations?
We were able to suspend a part of the 25% tariffs that were imposed on us linked to the apparently fentanyl crossing the Canadian border and going into the U.S., which we know at this point is a bogus argument. We've been working hard on protecting our border on both, working really hard also with the American administration. We think that there are too much American lives and Canadians' lives that are affected by fentanyl, the scourge of fentanyl. Some days, per capita, there are more people dying of fentanyl in Canada and in the US. So we have to work together. That's why we put more boots on the ground at the border, more Black Hawk helicopters, more also work being done through a strike force between Canada and US to counter fentanyl. But at the end of the day, we saw that all the work we were doing in good faith was not necessarily having an impact on President Trump himself. So that's why we're keeping our countermeasures, our counter tariffs in place. And of course, we want to find a way to ultimately be able to deal with this issue.
All right.
One thing that I also want to say is, aren't we, she conveniently mentioned that Canadians buy more American products than any other country, but she left out, doesn't America purchase more products from Canada than any other country? Hold on, let me look that up. Does America purchase the most products from Canada? Let's see. Hold on. All right. Hold on. Let me actually go in. Let me ask that question to ChatGPT very quickly, and then we're gonna get out of here. 1 second. I don't want to leave y'all without giving y'all that answer. Hold on. ChatGPT. Let's see what ChatGPT has to say. The United States is Canada's largest trading partner, with U.S. goods imports from Canada totaling $412.7 billion. However, when examining the United States overall import portfolio, Canada is not the largest supplier. So I believe that this is saying, and don't quote me, I believe this is saying that we are Canada's largest trade partner, but Canada is not necessarily ours because China and Mexico. So Canada may want to ease y'all. All the tough talk sounds good. But I don't know. Let's see how it plays out. What are y'all thoughts? Please like, please subscribe if you got some value from the video, and we'll see y'all on the next one. Ew.